Today's video, wanted to do something just a little bit different. You can see I've done the pencil sketch, just the outline, and today's video is going to be in monochrome. I don't even actually know whether I'm using neutral tint or a paynes grey, but I'm guessing, looking at the colour itself, maybe I'm guessing it's probably the paynes grey. I am actually a fan of neutral tint. When I did start this painting, I did want to do just a neutral tint. If you do, I don't know whether if you've tried neutral tint. What I usually use is Jackson's watercolour. It's a professional grade, so it's a really good pigmented colour. But I do like to use the neutral tint, the Jackson's, and I do also have the Winsor & Newton, which is slightly more expensive, but I do like to work with neutral tint. If you've not used neutral tint before, it's a really nice colour, and as it in the title, it's neutral, so you can add it to pretty much any colour, and it doesn't really affect the colour, just deepens the tone or darkens the tone. So it's a really nice colour to use. I don't know which one really is the best out of Winsor & Newton or the Jackson's. I do have both, but I've not really tried Winsor & Newton as much, because currently my palette is Jackson, so most of my paintings on here, all my videos, or most of them, I've been painting using the Jackson's professional grade watercolour. So, used any Jackson's, then leave us a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you like Jackson's watercolour? Have you tried them? I do recommend them because they are a very good brand. And they're a fraction of the price. You could buy probably a Jackson's tube of watercolour, and they come in 21 millilitres. 21 mils would be, say, if you could buy it for £3 or £4. If you got the Winsor & Newton, you'd be paying £6 or £7. So it's definitely worth looking into. But let me know what you think. Drop a comment in the comment section if you have had any experience with the Jackson's watercolours. Okay, so the sky is near enough done. You can see there's just bits of puddles forming. I just get my brush, and that's a squirrel mop brush. Just taking the pigment off, taking most of the water out of the brush, and just lightly coming down, taking off the beading, just a puddle of pigment that forms at the end where the paper is dry. And I just wanted to add some darker, deeper tones within the sky, just give that dramatic effect to the sky. And I'm letting that run down as I've tilted my watercolour block. I'm just letting that you can see the consistency of the watercolour. It's nice and juicy, so it's running down at a slight angle, giving a nice interesting effect in the sky. And I'm just doing it here and there. I don't want the whole sky to be the same, so that's what I'm doing, just letting the gravity and the water bring the fluid down at a slight angle. And by the way, if you are new to my channel, I would appreciate if you give us a like, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate any comments, anything like that, and also your likes. And also, if you drop me a comment if you have done any monochrome paintings such as this, what sort of colours have you used? It would be interesting to find out any feedback, just some of the colours that you may have used and what sort of effect that give you. Okay, so here I'm just pulling down with a slightly damp brush, but I've took most of the water out of the brush, cleaned them, and I'm just pulling down through the dark paint just to give the effect of some sun rays coming through. And once you do that, you can actually take the pigment off by blotting it, and that'll take the remainder of the pigment. So you have these nice light sun ray effects. And I'm doing the same sort of thing on the hills here, just to fade, give more of a distance to this scene. And just adding bits of tone here and there. As I do so, you can see the effects now in the sky. It looks quite nice, quite cloudy, and I don't know if you can see just on the left hand side there, you got this pure white where the lights hitting the clouds, and that's another nice thing to do in watercolour, is obviously leave your whites, if you're doing the sky, nice and loose. You can leave little highlights, things like that, just by leaving bits of paper showing. And this is the Arches watercolour paper. It's obviously the artist block, which I do like to use, and it's 7 by 10, sorry, 7 by 10 inches, so it's quite a small size to work with. But if you're new to watercolour, or not quite confident, or whatever it may be, it's probably quite a good size to start with, because you're not having to fill too much space. So 7 by 10 is a nice beginner's sort of size. And I really do like Arches. It's probably one of the more expensive papers, but I think in art supplies you really do get what you pay for. So if you can afford Arches watercolour paper, then I would strongly recommend doing so. You will definitely see the benefits, and it will improve your paintings, because the way it reacts with the paint, or the way the paint reacts to the paper, it seems to sit nicely and glows on. It just seems to glow on the surface of the paper. So that's one of the things that I like, the reasons why I like to use Arches watercolour paper. By the way, I do apologise for all the background noise you may be able to hear. There's lots of loud bangs, and if you wonder what that is, it's actually, well, it was bonfire night yesterday, so the 5th of November, that's what we call bonfire night here in the UK, and that's why you got lots of fireworks going off in the background. You can hear them as I'm doing this video. So I do apologise if that's distracting, but that's just one of the traditions we have here in the UK. Can you see now the effects that I've got in the sky, those clouds, and just the way the pigments come down the paper. I think it's actually dry now, but it's give a nice sort of effect. It's really really attractive to look at, and that's one of the things I like to do, and I think I've got it down quite well in this monochromatic effect. I don't know if it's the word monochromatic, but I think it's quite effective. It's quite dramatic, quite a bit of atmosphere in the scene, and just loosely now filling in the rest of the paper. It wasn't supposed to be a snow scene. I didn't set out to do a snow scene, but as I got to this stage, I decided that, you know, leaving lots of the paper unpainted, just a little bit of grey tones here and there, I decided to go along with a bit of a snow scene. So with it being winter, I thought it would fit quite nicely, and I thought it would lend itself quite nicely to the monochrome painting itself. So just doing a little path leading up to the cottages, and I'm thinking of doing a little wall on the left hand side leading up, and that'll be leading your eye up until into the painting itself. So just going ahead and doing some trees in the back of the buildings, just to frame the buildings and give them it helps to make the buildings pop, especially when you go with a dark sort of colour against a sort of white cottage or a light sort of sandstone cottage or anything like that. It does make a nice effect. It gives nice depth to the painting. So that's what I'm doing here. It's just nice and loose, and just relax and just let things happen. You can see here how I'm doing the trees, just letting my brush, using all the sides of the brush. By the way, this brush, this one in particular is, let me just see, I've got two brushes that I've been using, and the one that I'm actually using, you can see, that's a Da Vinci, and that's I think that's a mixed synthetic. So they're quite nice to use. So you got the I think it's half and half, sort of squirrel hair or something, and synthetic. So you got a nice spring on it, but yeah, it does retain plenty of water in the brush. And the other brush that I started off using for the sky and most of the beginning, the first wash, and that's an Isobay. It's a brand called Isobay. It's a French brush, and that's the squirrel mop brush. So that's quite a nice brush, and it's not too big. Let me see the size. I can't see the size. So the size of the Isobay brush, the squirrel mop brush, is actually size 2. So it's quite a small brush for a mop brush, but it's nice to get in those details without fiddling around too much. It's got a nice point to the brush, but yeah, it's good for getting plenty of water in the brush. So it gives a nice wash. As you can see, I've done it in the sky. And here is where I'm, as I said, I'm just doing it's almost like a dry stone wall. We have lots of those in this country. In the countryside, you have these dry stone walls, and I just did that literally by just placing the belly of the brush down and repeating that process as I go down the painting, just making the marks go slightly smaller as I obviously get further away. So that's really how I did the wall. Really simple, So I don't want to complicate things. I'm still trying to keep things loose and fresh, and also trying to help any of you that may be new to watercolour. So I'm just simplifying everything that I do, and you can see not really bothered with too much detail. I like the way things look when you keep them loose and fresh. You saw the pencil drawing that I started off with. It really wasn't much to look at. It was just literally the cottages, the buildings, and maybe a couple of trees behind, and then sort of the outline of the hills, and that was it for the pencil sketch. So that is just a rough guide to where I'm going with the paints, and I think that reflects in the overall look of the painting. So if you want to do a loose watercolour painting, then I would suggest that you keep your pencil sketch nice and loose. I think sometimes if you go in too tight and spend too much time with the initial drawing, then you're just going to end up painting too tight, and I think the enjoyment goes out of painting really tight. Unless that's the style that you want to do, then that's fair enough. You can do that. But I do like the way things look when you keep things loose. It's less pressure, and I think a bit more enjoyable, especially for me anyway. That's my opinion. I do find it more enjoyable, and it's obviously less time as well. So I'm just filling in the details on the cottages. You can see, just dabbing my brush down, making the door, doing the windows, and then I feel it needed planting to the ground, so I just did a dark line going underneath the building, and I will probably carry that down by the hillside, and that can be some sort of a wall or fence or something like that. I think as I come to some final details, I think I'll be switching to the liner brush, and that's ideal for any winter trees, branches, grasses, things like that. You can see the liner brush that I've got. It's really a fine, sort of small, what would you call a small liner brush. It's a really fine tip, so you can get those really thin lines, ideal for trees. Just add in some line work. You can see just add in some of the trunks to the trees, and just give in little lines here and there. Just letting some of those lines come up out of the trees, just give it that little bit more definition. But that's the liner brush, and I would recommend getting a liner brush if you don't have one. So this whole painting I've only used 3 brushes. So this liner brush is just for the final little touches. And I'm also thinking I'm probably going to put a person in this picture, maybe to walking towards the cottages. So I'm wondering whether to pop a little figure in there. I think maybe that would work, just walking maybe towards the cottages. And I'm just adding some just a bit of a wash, just glazing over the buildings, just to give some shadow, and that'll give emphasis to the left hand side for the highlights. I'm actually just about to order some paper, some more watercolour paper, some more art supplies, And I'm currently looking at Cardi papers. I don't know whether anyone's used Cardi. I think it's spelled is it Khadi, or is it Kadhi? I don't know, one of them, but it's I think it's an Indian watercolour paper, and I think that's a reasonably priced paper. I think I'm going to order I think it's 20, a pack of 20 A4 size, and it's a real sort of reasonable price, and it's supposed to be quite good. So I think I'm going to try some Cardi paper, and maybe I'm going to probably pick up a couple of sketchbooks. That's one of the things I used to always love painting in. It's only recently that I've done a little bit of work in my sketchbook that I had going, the Stillman and Burn, and I forgot how nice the paper really is. Although I think it's 150 GSM, so it's quite a thin paper, but I think the sizing, it really does help, because it's internally sized and externally sized. So what that means, it's just the paper's been treated. I don't know whether it's a gelatin or something like that, but it's been treated as it's been manufactured, and so usually the heavier the paper, then the more sort of washes the paper can take, but it depends on the sizing. So with the watercolour sketchbooks, then it's not always the weight of the paper, so that's something you can bear in mind. But I do recommend the Stillman and Burn series of watercolour sketchbooks. The one that I'm currently using is the Alpha series, and I'm going to be doing a video pretty soon on the things that I've been doing in that sketchbook. So I did actually try, I came in late for the Inktober. I think it was about the 8th or 9th of October that I started doing a sketch per day, but I've kind of fallen by the wayside. But I'm still going to be trying to do quite a few more pages, and I'll be doing a video on that sketchbook and the things that I've done. So it's going to be more of a November. So it's almost a failed Inktober, but I'm going to take it into November, and I'll be sharing the video of that, which is going to be quite interesting. So if you do want to see that video on my Stillman and Burn Alpha sketchbook, then just hit the notification bell, and you will be notified when I do that video. I don't know when it'll be, maybe a couple of videos time, but that's in the pipeline. But I'd be interested to know what you think of this video, this monochrome, if it's something that you like. If it's something that you'd like to see more of, I can definitely do something like this again. Maybe a different scene, maybe a different colour. I'd be quite interested to see this in maybe a yellow ochre, or even a blue colour, maybe. Maybe an ink. I don't know, just let me know, drop me a comment, let me know what you think, let me know what sort of colours you'd maybe like to see another scene done in, and maybe that's something I could do in the next video. Well, I don't know whether adding the figure has worked out very well, and that is supposed to be a dog or something. But I think it works. It's a nice simple scene. Didn't really take much planning or thought. I just went ahead and just enjoyed the painting process. So sometimes these things work, sometimes they don't, but I've enjoyed this one. Hope you like it, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care, bye bye.